A new Arkane game, a surprise appearance from Shinji Mikami, and a suggestion of Elder Scrolls. Here's everything we learned at the Bethesda E3 2019 conference. Bethesda's E3 showing increases in prestige every single year as the publisher corners both the sprawling open world and dumb fun shooter markets. This year was no different, but there were some surprises. Louise was there and I spoke to her about exactly what she saw. So Louise, you went to the Bethesda conference. Which were the moments that particularly stood out to you?
Okay, so first off, we'll talk the big one, which is what Bethesda went quite big on, was Doom Eternal. Now, they saved it for last, but we're going to put it at the start of our video because it's quite exciting. We now have a release date for Doom Eternal, which is November the 22nd. And if you so wish, before we get on to the gameplay part, you can actually pre-order the collector's edition, which comes with an actual helmet. Yes, you can have an actual helmet that is actually full size that you can put on your head. So if you want to be, the Slayer, you absolutely can be. You can sit and play with a helmet on. So what they've managed to do here is they've added in so much extra. So you've got sort of mid-air dash, you're clambering up walls, you're climbing on things, you're swinging on stuff. You've got a blade that, so while sure you can shoot an enemy, you can also saw at them. You can remove limbs, you can, stab them in the neck before hitting them with something else. And it feels like everything you've ever loved about Doom, especially in really interestingly shaped vertical areas, jumping up and down, using extra airtime, slamming some enemies, shooting other ones, switching between guns. So Doom Eternal feels like really the most ultimate Doom that we could possibly ever had, and we've already actually had Ultimate Doom. What they also showed off, which was quite cool, and they just kind of showed it at the end, which is called Battle Mode, and it's Doom's multiplayer. So what you've got is you've got one player controlled sort of Doom guy, basically the Slayer, and then you've got two demons that are also player controlled. So it's this kind of like first person, but almost strategic, asymmetrical multiplayer. It's really, really interesting. It goes in the face of sort of all the other, your Destiny multiplayers, all the rest of it. This you actually have to really think about. You think it's a game of strategy. They called it almost a first-person fighting game, the way that that's going to run. So that's really interesting.
That does sound really cool. And we saw a bit more of Fallout 76, right?
Yeah, so Fallout 76, Bethesda were very, very honest. They're like, so they made a lot of the conference about players and thanking players for being part of the community. They really wanted to focus on people being able to talk back. And there was even stuff about them saying, sometimes you're too honest with us, which was kind of a nice dig in the fact that Fallout 76 obviously didn't review as well as they'd hoped. But what they did say was that Fallout 76, while it hasn't had initially the best response, they said that they have literally grown the politest online community, where despite the fact that you're in a world where you can nuke people, there are actually people sort of leaving food and water out for each other. And they were even saying it shows nice things for the apocalypse. And obviously, to thank everyone for still playing it, they're doing a massive update for year 2. So basically they are adding dialogue trees. And dialogue trees mean that there's actually NPCs being introduced in the world. So we're actually getting, there was a big thing about the fact that Fallout 76 was a world that was just occupied by other players, not what makes a Fallout world so rich, which is NPCs. But they are adding in NPCs, they are adding in new quests. This is going to feel like a much, much richer world in year 2. So that's a really good thing. There was properly like cheers and whoops in the audience. The minute NPCs were mentioned, it was everyone was whooping. And another thing that they're adding, just what Fallout 76 needed, was a battle royale mode. So there's this, it's called Nuclear Winter, and there is now a 52-player battle royale mode, which will come free. In fact, it's important to say that all of the updates are actually are free. You don't need to pay anymore. They've made a big deal out of the fact that this will all just kind of land in your hard drive when ready. It's really cool, the fact that they are paying attention to it, and they're also, from this week of E3, they're actually letting people try Fallout 76 for free. And I think the battle royale mode's in there too. So if you are interested and you haven't invested, maybe the initial reviews put you off, you can actually go in and try this new mode and see what everyone's talking about, which is cool.
Fantastic. And on the subject of Bethesda open worlds that cause people to whoop, there was a There was a glimmer, wasn't there, of the next Elder Scrolls?
In the middle of a sentence, basically, from Todd Howard, who was saying that everyone is hard at work at Bethesda. And in the middle of it, he said, we're hard at work on this. We're hard at work on Elder Scrolls 6. And that was the only mention of Elder Scrolls 6 in the entire show.
Yes, we're still hard at work on our next-gen RPGs, Starfield, and of course, Elder Scrolls 6.
But obviously that got everyone really excited. Obviously we saw what we saw last year, which was just a tease and a glimmer. And let's think realistically, like we're looking at next year where there's obviously going to be, Xbox have announced that they will have their next generation 8K console. Presumably PlayStation will be the same. If we're thinking about it all adding up, of course Elder Scrolls isn't going to be out until the next generation of consoles has arrived, and then as PC players we will bask, in whatever arrives for us. But I think that definitely makes sense.
Onto a slightly more tangible subject then. What did they show you of Rage 2?
So yes, Rage 2, which as you know, I shot absolutely everything in. Rage 2 has a couple of interesting updates coming. It's got cheat codes. So if it wasn't chaotic enough, you can kind of manipulate things. There's sort of instant explosions. People already go on fire in that game. That's literally a game where you fire a gun at people, then detonate the bullet in their heads. But obviously that's not quite enough for Rage 2. They want even more. The sandworms that they threatened, that were previously in the trailer for the game itself, but weren't in the game, they're making an appearance. And the trailer was just kind of, it was almost like a really cheesy TV commercial that were showing sandworms previously, with a ridiculous soundtrack under them, as sort of cheesy grins, and the goon or the one that's going to get shot. So they're hamming up the humour of Rage 2 at the same time as adding in a stack of new weapons. They're adding in new vehicles and a pilotable mech, which, everyone needs, right? So it's not like you've got enough guns in Rage or enough ridiculous powers that you can squelch people, but now you can just jump into a mech and shoot people with a mech. They also, and they weren't saying whether it was free or not, but there is this additional story coming later this year, and there'll be a new faction and new areas to explore and new weapons and new quests and things. So there's still going to be more Rage and Fury.
Hey, nice segue. Rage and Fury. Let's talk a bit about Wolfenstein.
So July is going to be pretty busy for Wolfenstein. First of all, they revealed that there's Wolfenstein Cyber Pilot, which is killing Nazis in VR. They really hammed up the fact that people would really like to do that in VR, and of course, everybody does. And also coming out in July is Wolfenstein Youngblood, which is coming out on July the 26th, which is the co-op multiplayer where you are playing as BJ's daughters who are trying to go out and find him who's missing. You can play it on your own, but it has also been sort of created for proper co-op chaos, and they showed a lot of gameplay of that, which was just lots of heads exploding and super violence and explosions. So yeah, what they also said about Wolfenstein Youngblood, it's the biggest, they were talking about it being the sort of biggest Wolfenstein experience. So there's lots of weapons, there's lots of choice, there's lots of different ways to do things. And there's going to be sort of different ways that you can play with the environments rather than just, you can do it the way you want. So yeah, the gameplay and everything for that looked amazing. It looked like a lot of fun, and it feels like, just like Rage, it feels very Bethesda. It has that Bethesda feel to it of let's just destroy everything, and that kind of thrilling violence aspect. Bethesda's definitely ticking that box with Youngblood.
It's interesting that they're owning that as well as the big open world thing. It's kind of two really cool things for them to have expertise in.
Why can't you just enjoy life for a second, Jess?
So the last two things we'll talk about, I think, were surprises, because we kind of knew that the other stuff was coming. Tell us a little bit about Deathloop.
Yeah, so Arkane Leon came on stage. That's obviously the guys that are responsible for Dishonored, and they've actually helped out on Youngblood, but they wanted to reveal their own game, and it's really, really exciting, actually, kind of like Dishonored. They were a little vague about what it's about, but it's basically about two assassins that keep dying, that keep killing each other to recreate this loop. So all these environments where they're talking about the sort of emergent gameplay opportunities of Dishonored, where you can do what you want when you want, but at the same time there's this kind of mind-bending story involved, and it all looks really super stylish. It's all slow motion. These two assassins are smashing things up and destroying things, and they talked about the fact that it's this world of madness, really, and they've constantly got a clock ticking from time to time, sort of moving time forward but then resetting. One wants to stop the loop by sort of not wanting to kill the other one, but then the other one wants to take vengeance. So there seems to be these two stories of these eternal murderous assassins, and it sounds like something that only Arkane can really do well.
That sounds so Arkane.
It's so Arkane. The fact they're talking about this world of madness, but also these different ways to do things. And I think it will be one of those, we don't have a release date on it yet. It's again one of those things they're just dangling, because obviously it's going to take as much work as Dishonored, if not more, for sort of time-bending stuff. It's very Edge of Tomorrow, very Happy Death Day, very Groundhog Day with murder. But there's your book. But it's definitely it's going to be interesting because it's from those guys.
Absolutely. That sounds fascinating. Last surprise, new game from Tango Gameworks.
Yeah, so first off, Shinji Mikami came on stage and said, Tango Gameworks is announcing a new game, and you're wondering, will this be like more of the evil within? Do we need more of that horrifying thing with a safe on its head? But no. So what they're actually doing is a new kind of action. They're saying it's a new style of action adventure game. So he actually introduced the creative director, which is Ikumi Nakamura, and she came on to talk about Ghostwire Tokyo. So this new action adventure, she's saying, it's not survival horror, but there are horror elements. So what we see in the trailer are that apparently people in Tokyo are disappearing, and you must find out why. But in the trailer, you see it's like War of the Worlds. The people are just disappearing and just leaving their clothes behind. And what's also really sad is there's one scene in the trailer where a dog is just being taken out for a walk, and then all of a sudden his owner is just a pile of clothes. It's the saddest thing I've seen at E3. But also it's got all this cool imagery of sort of an escalator and people disappearing on the escalator, and all that comes over the escalator is a lone high-heeled shoe. So they're not entirely saying exactly what it's about. It seems to be very mysterious, quite scary. There's some really sort of intense imagery in the trailer. All that, I don't like it when people just disappear, Matt. That's not a nice thing. But there's kind of skeletal hands and sort of demonic faces and things appearing. So I think things are definitely airing. Ikumi said, is it real or is it all in someone's head? It definitely seems to be very real as sort of paranormal things go, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens. And as we know, Tango Gameworks do make very interesting horror games that are very unique. So I'm really excited about that one. And
of course, like, Shinji Mikami has amazing heritage in action games as well, so it feels like it's a win-win. Cool. Well, that all sounds amazingly exciting. It's fair to say, like, from the feeling in the room, Bethesda had a pretty strong showing this year.
Yeah, they did. Everyone was secretly hoping for Elder Scrolls. Obviously, that got confirmed. But the fact that Doom Eternal sort of was front and centre, it got its release date, and there was still enough sort of nice little surprises as well to keep everyone excited for sort of next generation and next year. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm really impressed.
Stay tuned for more reports right from E3, and subscribe to the channel now to stay up to date with all the fresh releases and info. And if you are already subscribed, hit that notification bell to never miss another video.